At exactly 2:17 a.m., the entire internet froze. A classified FBI alert, never meant for public eyes, was suddenly leaked across multiple anonymous channels at the same time. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, news dashboards. Gone viral before anyone could even verify it. And the headline inside that leak was something nobody was prepared for. Any Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni, arrest confirmed. FBI links them to planned murder plot targeting Nancy. What made it worse wasn't just the arrest. It was a phrase buried in the report that sent shockwaves through investigators themselves. This was not an accident. This was coordinated, and it was planned weeks in advance. Within hours, both Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni were reportedly taken into federal custody under sealed charges. No public statement, no explanation, just silence and chaos filling the gap. But here's where it gets even darker, because insiders claim this case was never supposed to come out this early. One source allegedly connected to the investigation said something forced their hand, someone inside flipped, or something went wrong during the execution phase. And now the biggest question is no longer what happened, it's what exactly did the FBI just stop right before it completed? And why does it feel like this is only the beginning of something much bigger, hiding underneath? To understand how things allegedly spiraled into an FBI-level investigation, you have to go back before the arrests, before the headlines, before the world even knew these names would collide in something this dark. Because according to insiders, this didn't start as a crime story. It started as a connection that looked normal, even harmless on the surface. Annie Guthrie was known publicly as someone calm, private, and deeply rooted in her circle. To outsiders, she appeared controlled, composed, and far removed from any kind of controversy. But people close to the situation now describe her differently behind closed doors. Someone under pressure, constantly pulled between loyalty, fear, and emotional instability tied to her personal life. Then there was Tommaso Cioni, a name that, until recently, stayed mostly under the radar. Described by some as charismatic, by others as calculated. Someone who moved quietly but always seemed to be present when tension began building around certain circles. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be, according to leaked accounts. He had a way of influencing situations without ever appearing directly involved. And then came Nancy, the center of everything. At least according to the emerging narrative from investigators. Nancy was not just another name in this situation. She was reportedly connected to both Annie and Tommaso in ways that are now being described as emotionally complex and operationally sensitive. At first, their interactions looked ordinary. Social overlap, mutual acquaintances, occasional contact through shared circles. Nothing that would raise alarms. But insiders now claim something changed in the months leading up to the incident. Tension reportedly began building quietly. Small disagreements, sudden distance, conversations that stopped making sense. People in their circle allegedly noticed Annie becoming more withdrawn, while Tommaso began appearing in situations where he shouldn't have been present. And Nancy, according to one unnamed source, she had started questioning things, asking the wrong questions, seeing patterns others were ignoring. That's when everything allegedly shifted. Rumors began circulating inside private circles that there was a growing conflict of trust between all three. Nothing public, nothing documented, just whispers, messages deleted too quickly, calls that ended abruptly, and meetings that were never acknowledged afterward. One insider described it like this: it wasn't one big fight, it was a slow collapse. Like something was breaking underneath all of them, and nobody wanted to say it out loud. And as that pressure built, so did the distance. Friends allegedly stopped recognizing Annie's behavior. Tommaso became harder to track socially. Nancy reportedly became more isolated, pulling away from shared spaces entirely. But what makes this even more disturbing is what investigators now believe happened next. Because just weeks before the alleged arrest, there were signs, digital traces, encrypted conversations, and unexplained movements that suggested something had moved from emotional tension to planning. And that's where the story stops being about relationships and starts becoming something far more serious. Because according to one leaked line from a preliminary FBI summary, The subject relationship network is no longer social. It is now classified as operational. And once that classification appears in a case file, nothing stays normal after that. Not Annie, not Tommaso, and not Nancy. And the most chilling part? Nobody knows what triggered the final breaking point yet, but investigators reportedly do. And they're not talking. Not yet. It all allegedly exploded on a night that started like any other until it didn't. According to leaked timelines circulating through underground forums, the first major trigger happened at a private location linked to a closed-door meeting between Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni. No press, no public event, no witnesses who would speak openly, just a quiet setting in a conversation that, according to one insider, wasn't supposed to leave that room in any form. At first, everything appeared controlled. Annie reportedly arrived earlier than expected. Tommaso followed shortly after, and Nancy was not physically present, but her name, according to sources familiar with the situation, dominated the entire discussion. This was the point where everything allegedly shifted from tension into confrontation. One leaked reconstruction of the event suggests that Annie was visibly agitated, not loud, but controlled, tense, and emotionally cornered. Tommaso, on the other hand, was described as unusually calm, almost too calm. And that calmness, according to investigators' behavioral notes, is what made the situation even more disturbing. Because calm people don't panic, unless they already know what's coming next. Witness accounts, still unverified but widely circulated, claim the conversation centered around Nancy's recent actions. Allegedly, Nancy had begun sharing information with outside contacts. Information that wasn't just personal, but sensitive enough to raise legal concern. At some point during the meeting, the tone reportedly changed completely. Annie allegedly accused Tommaso of misleading everyone from the beginning. Tommaso, in response, allegedly denied involvement in what she was implying. But then something unexpected happened. A device was placed on the table. No one has confirmed what it contained, but insiders describe it as a visual trigger, something that instantly changed the emotional direction of the entire encounter. Within minutes, the conversation allegedly escalated into chaos. Raised voices, interrupted sentences, and a moment where, according to one source, Annie stood up and said something that has since become central to the investigation. If Nancy talks, everything falls apart. That single line is now reportedly referenced in multiple internal documents. Because it reframed everything, this was no longer about misunderstanding. It was about consequences. And that's when the first twist hit. Because according to leaked FBI summaries, the meeting wasn't just a confrontation. It was allegedly being monitored, not by Nancy, not by a friend, but by an unauthorized third-party recording device that captured portions of the conversation in real time. And what investigators heard changed the direction of the entire case. Within hours of that recording being recovered, federal interest reportedly escalated from private dispute to active threat assessment. But here's where it gets darker. Because the recording allegedly contained a moment where Tommaso, speaking in a lowered tone, said something that investigators flagged immediately. It's already in motion. Stopping it now doesn't fix anything. That sentence alone triggered what internal documents now refer to as Protocol Escalation Phase 1. And just like that, everything accelerated. Phones were allegedly seized. Locations were monitored. Digital footprints were traced in real time. And within a very short window after that meeting, Nancy went completely silent. No messages, no posts, no confirmed sightings. Just disappearance from all active communication channels. At first, it looked like she was simply avoiding contact. But investigators now believe it was something else entirely. Because shortly after Nancy's disappearance from digital space, a second anomaly appeared. Encrypted traffic spikes between two unidentified endpoints. One later linked to Tommaso, and the other still officially unconfirmed in public records, but heavily suspected to be connected to Annie. And that's when the case stopped being a rumor and became something far more serious. Because now authorities weren't just looking at conflict. They were looking at coordination. And the biggest shock came when analysts realized something even more alarming. The timing of Nancy's disappearance matched the exact window when the alleged plan referenced and recovered metadata, was supposed to enter its final stage, meaning one of two things was now possible. Either Nancy had vanished to protect herself, or she had already become part of something she couldn't escape. And just when investigators thought they understood the pattern, the system recorded something even more disturbing. A single outbound message fragment from an encrypted channel linked to Tommaso. For words, no context, no recipient confirmation. Just this, it cannot be stopped. And that was the moment everything went from investigation to emergency. After the alleged leak of the recording and Nancy's sudden disappearance from all communication channels, the situation didn't just escalate. It detonated across every digital platform at once. Within hours, anonymous accounts began dropping fragments of what they claimed were case references tied to Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni. Screenshots, redacted documents, strange audio clips with distorted voices arguing in the background. Nothing officially confirmed, but enough to ignite chaos. And then came the second wave. A supposed internal memo, leaked through an encrypted forum, began circulating, labeled only as Case Status Update. Subjects moved to high-risk coordination category. No explanation, no source. But investigators reportedly recognized the format immediately. This was no longer gossip. It was now being treated like an act of federal escalation. Social media erupted. Hashtags like hashtag Where's Nancy, hashtag Annie Guthrie Arrest, and hashtag Tommaso Cioni FBI started trending simultaneously, each feeding the next wave of speculation. Some users claimed Annie had been seen in federal custody transport footage. Others insisted Tommaso had been moved under a sealed identity protocol. Nothing matched. Everything conflicted. And that inconsistency only made the mystery worse. Then a shocking twist hit the public narrative. A leaked audio fragment surfaced, only 17 seconds long, distorted, but clearly containing 3 recognizable voices. One voice allegedly identified as Annie, speaking in a shaky tone. You said it wouldn't go this far. A second voice, believed to be Tommaso, responding coldly. It already did. And a third voice, unconfirmed, but widely believed to be tied to Nancy, whispering something barely audible before the recording cuts off completely. Within minutes, analysts began dissecting the clip frame by frame. Some claimed it was fake. Others insisted it matched verified voice patterns. But investigators did something different. They stopped denying it publicly. And that silence was louder than any confirmation. Behind the scenes, emergency coordination reportedly intensified. Digital assets linked to all 3 individuals were restricted. Private communications flagged for monitoring. And sources suggest that at least 2 additional names were pulled into the investigation overnight. People previously never mentioned in public discussions. That's when the narrative shifted again. Because now it wasn't just about Annie, Tommaso, or Nancy. It was about who else was connected to them. One insider leak described a situation like this. This isn't a triangle anymore. It's a network, and we're only seeing the edges. Meanwhile, conflicting reports emerged suggesting Nancy may not have simply disappeared, but could have been moved under protective isolation due to what she allegedly knew. That possibility completely changed the tone of the case. Because if true, it meant Nancy wasn't a victim caught in the middle. She may have been a key witness to something far bigger than anyone expected. And just when authorities thought they had contained the situation, another encrypted burst of data hit the system. This time, it contained only one line. Phase 2 begins without approval. No sender, no traceable origin, no context. But investigators immediately flagged it as time-sensitive operational language. And that single message triggered what internal sources are now calling the complete lockdown transition phase. From that point forward, nothing was just speculation anymore.
Heavy, full-faced ski mask.
And whatever
His
was
clothing
happening
was
behind
layered,
closed doors was now officially out of public control. The moment the leaked fragment spread, the internet didn't just react. It erupted like a controlled explosion gone wrong. Every platform turned into a battlefield of theories, accusations, and panic-driven speculation. On one side, users were convinced this was the biggest hidden federal case of the year. On the other, skeptics insisted it was all manipulated media noise designed to mislead the public. But neither side could ignore one thing: the consistency of the details being leaked. Because despite coming from completely different anonymous accounts, the same names kept appearing again and again. Guthrie Tommaso Cioni, Nancy, and that repetition created something dangerous. Belief within hours. Hashtags flooded global trends. Hashtag Justice for Nancy, hashtag Guthrie case, hashtag Tommaso Cioni exposed. But the real shock came when alleged industry insiders began speaking out. A verified-looking account claiming to be a former federal contractor posted, "This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a structured, multi-subject investigation. People are underestimating how far this goes." That post alone gathered millions of views before being deleted. But screenshots? Already everywhere. Then came the celebrity reaction wave. A few public figures, whose names were never officially tied to the situation, began posting vague messages. Some truths are too heavy to ignore. When silence lasts too long, it means something is already broken. I hope people understand what's really happening behind the scenes. No direct names, but the timing was enough to fuel speculation even further. Meanwhile, news outlets struggled to catch up. Some ran cautious headlines like, "Unverified FBI-linked leak circulates online." Others went further. Social media claims suggest high-level federal arrests in private investigation, but none of them could confirm anything officially. And that silence from authorities only made things worse. Because in the absence of facts, the internet created its own reality. Fan communities split instantly. Some defended Annie, saying she was being framed or used as a scapegoat in a much larger system. Others insisted Tommaso had been the central figure all along, calling him the hidden operator behind everything. And Nancy became the most mysterious figure of all. Victim to some, whistleblower to others, and something far more complicated to everyone else. Then a new twist hit the timeline. A supposed internal briefing note leaked briefly before being taken down, stating, "Public narrative instability is increasing. The risk of secondary exposure events is high." That phrase alone triggered mass panic in online communities dissecting the case, because it suggested something even more unsettling: that authorities were not just investigating the situation anymore. They were actively trying to control what the public knew. And that opened the door to an even darker question. What exactly are they trying to keep from getting out? Shortly after that leak, something even stranger happened. Multiple accounts claiming to be connected to Nancy's circle posted identical messages within seconds of each other. She didn't disappear. She was removed before the second stage. No further explanation. No clarification. Just that line, spreading like wildfire before vanishing again. And just when the chaos reached peak intensity, the final twist was already forming in the background. Because somewhere deep within the encrypted network logs, investigators reportedly discovered something that changed everything again. A scheduled trigger event labeled simply, "Reset window active," and it was already counting down. Just when the public thought the situation had reached its peak, everything took a darker, sharper turn that nobody saw coming. Because at exactly 3:41 a.m., another sealed data packet surfaced inside a restricted monitoring channel tied to the investigation. It wasn't leaked by journalists. It wasn't posted by anonymous accounts. It appeared directly inside a federal tracking system. And the label on it was enough to freeze analysts instantly. "Reset window. Final confirmation received." Within seconds, internal alarms reportedly triggered across multiple monitoring nodes. Systems flagged the file as active procedural escalation material. That meant one thing. This wasn't past information. This was live. And whatever reset window meant, it was already in motion. But the real shock came when investigators opened the metadata. Because hidden inside the file wasn't just a timestamp. It contained a list of names. Guthrie, Tommaso Cioni, Nancy. But there was something new. A fourth identifier appeared. Redacted, classified, and marked with priority tag higher than the others. No public record, no known identity, just a code-level designation that analysts refused to comment on. And that changed everything. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about three people anymore. It was about a system, a structure, Something coordinated at a level nobody outside the investigation had fully seen. Then came the second shock. A fragmented audio transmission, automatically logged before being cut off, was recovered from a secure surveillance feed. It lasted only a few seconds, but it sent investigators into immediate silence. A distorted voice, believed to be Annie, said, "If this resets, we lose everything we tried to protect." Then another voice, calm, controlled, identified by analysts as Tommaso. "It's not a loss, it's a correction." And then a third sound, not a sentence, not a word, just breathing, followed by silence. And after that moment, Nancy's digital trace, already unstable, completely vanished from every monitored system. No reroute, no backup signal, no shadow activity, just gone. That's when panic officially entered the investigation, because disappearance at that level doesn't happen naturally. It happens when something is actively removed. And that's exactly what internal logs began suggesting. At the same time, another disturbing pattern emerged. Multiple encrypted channels tied to unrelated locations began synchronizing activity for the first time. Different countries, different servers, different origins, but all sending identical timestamps. Reset initiation confirmed, and investigators realized something terrifying. This wasn't an isolated case anymore. It was a coordinated activation, a structure that had been sitting dormant, now switching itself back on. But the most chilling discovery came last. A single outbound line, recovered from a corrupted server node, believed to be the final communication before system lockdown. Once the reset completes, no prior version remains. No
Heavy,
names,
full-face ski
no
mask.
explanation,
His clothing was
no
layered,
clarification,
deliberate.
just that sentence, echoing through every level of the investigation. And then silence, complete system silence, as if the entire case had been pulled behind a curtain no one could see through. But what investigators know now, and what the public still doesn't understand, is that the reset isn't something that might happen. It's something that has already started. And the next update may not be about what happened, but about what is already gone. So now the question is not just what you've heard, it's what you actually believe is happening behind all of this. Because if even a fraction of these leaked fragments, recordings, and reset window warnings are real, then this case is way bigger than Annie Guthrie, Tommaso Cioni, or Nancy ever being individual names of the story. And that's exactly why the situation is blowing up across the internet right now. People are split into two sides. One side is saying this is the most shocking hidden investigation they've ever seen surface online. A case full of encrypted signals, disappearances, and coordinated activity that doesn't make sense on the surface. The other side is calling it manipulation, a constructed narrative, a digital illusion designed to confuse and control attention. But here's the part nobody can ignore anymore. Something is clearly happening. Too many leaks, too many matching details, too many unexplained gaps, and the silence from official sources is only making it louder. So now I want you to be part of this conversation, because this isn't just a story anymore. It's becoming a global debate unfolding in real time. Drop your opinion in the comments. Do you think Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni were really involved in a coordinated plan, or is this entire case being exaggerated and manipulated from the shadows? And what about Nancy? Do you think she is a victim who got caught in something bigger than her control, a whistleblower who knows too much, or someone whose disappearance is a key to everything? I want you to really think about it before you answer, because whatever side you choose, there's no simple explanation anymore. And if the reset window theory is even partially true, then this story is far from over. In fact, some sources suggest the next wave of leaks is already being prepared right now, waiting for the exact moment to drop. So if you don't want to miss what happens next, make sure you're subscribed, notifications are turned on, and you're ready for the next update. Because this case is changing every single hour. And when the next piece drops, everything you think you understand about this situation could completely flip again.